Hello and welcome back to Bricking It, and today we're looking at the modular build for our room of requirement. So let's get started. So the first thing we notice when we look at the room of requirement is that obviously it's fairly blank. Nothing much in here, just an empty box, really, because of our details are going to be coming with the scenes that we add a little later on. It's the same size as the official room of requirement set, in that it's 2 levels high. The back and the sides aren't going to be seen, they're going to be hidden next to other modules. You can see I've even reused parts that I've salvaged from previous modules. We've got some old stickers, but it allows me to use the stickers on the other side. We've just added a bit of interest to the brickwork. We've even made use of some panels instead of bricks. God, I had so many. Now we can see those brickwork stickers. Got a few snot bricks around the place to help us add detail when we put our different scenes in. From the 2023 set, the official room of requirement set, we're using these nice double doors and these pillars and archway around the outside. And the top is a little thicker than it was normally. We'll talk about that in a moment. But just wanted to show you this section here where I've used these inverted curved slopes rather, and these curved slopes at the top, built into arches, what I think of as anti-arches, curved shoe pieces. Just that little extra bit of colour with our shield piece on top and the candles just adds a bit of interest to the top of our module. So you can see the floor is just tiled off using these aqua tiles because they're not going to be seen, because this is a subfloor that's going to hold our module bases when we insert them, and the actual floor level is going to be level with these studs here at the threshold. So I said, looking at the top, it's actually thicker than usual. I brought it out from 1 stud to 2 using these inverted slopes. And that's just so that at the top, where we've got these lower rails, we're going to be inserting another part of our build, and that's going to be removable. So all the weight needs to be borne across these back studs. That's why we just added a few extra studs of depth to offer added support to the modules above, just while we're removing and adding our scenes. So these bits here are going to hold the next part of our module. So here are our arches. They're designed just like in the movies. They don't actually go all the way down to the ground. They're kind of floating columns just up there, just to add a bit more interest to the scene at the top. They just sit on these rails and slide into position, because our module is going to be surrounded on all sides, so we can't get inside it or access the outside of it. So we need everything to be possible to slide in from the front. So these are built off center, so we can have the columns further forward in the build, or if we want more detail at the front, they can slide closer to the back. You see these brown tiles in there, and they're modified tiles with a stud on. It's just so I can rotate the columns for use. And here we see the offset, 3 studs on one side and 1 on the other. I was saying these brown tiles, obviously it wouldn't be one of my videos if I wasn't waiting for a part. They just allow me to rotate the columns in place for use in various modules, and we'll see that take effect a little bit later. So these will rest mostly on the cabinets in the various modules of our build, but sometimes, like in the training room, they're going to be freestanding. And indeed, the first module we're going to look at is going to be the training room. So here's our module base, designed to vaguely approximate the flooring of the training room, using the dark bluish grey and dark tan, and that's just going to slide in and seat itself against the studs at the back there. There's nothing securing this in, but because the module is going to be securely held in the castle, it will hold in quite nicely. So this wouldn't be much of a scene without adding some extra details. So the first part we're going to pop in is going to be our fireplace. It's going to sit in front of the door. Of course it obscures the door, but if you remember back and look at some set photographs, the most prominent piece of furniture visible is of course the fireplace, and either side of that are the mirrors for reflecting and mitigating any spell damage during training sessions. And these are just going to sit either side. They've got some detail on them because they're from a friend set, but they do the job perfectly well. Of course we need the notice board featuring the various pictures of the Order of the Phoenix, and this was from the Room for Requirements set. And this can sit here at the side, out of the way, or if we want it to feature a bit more prominently in the scene, we can bring it out in front. That obscures one of our mirrors. Just gives us the best chance to see it. Another transplant over from my old version of the Room for Requirement is our Death Eater training dummy. Replace the wheel bottom with a 2x2x3 slope, just to allow me to stud it on, just so that when it's stored it's not going to rattle around. And of course let's add Hermione having a bit of a practice. So that's pretty much, the ground floor details. Still looks a bit bare. It comes to life a lot more when we add a few more minifigs into the scene. You'll see one of our Patronuses. Just depending on which version of the training scene we want to include. We've got these studs and little action pieces on the wall, so we can have Patronuses all over the place around the walls of our Room of Requirement. So here we see it with a few more figures in. We've just added a little dueling scene. But all the action is really happening at the bottom of our module. There is one more piece of furniture we can add in. It's fairly prominent in the Room of Requirement when it's in training mode. And that's going to be this large chandelier. I'm going to start making that just one of these 4x4 round plates. And onto this I'm just adding some clear cylinders. And these are going to form the first widest layer of our chandelier. It's going to hang upside down there. To be able to add our second layer on, we're going to need something to attach it to. So I'm using this round brick here, and it's the same colour as the backdrop, so shouldn't be too obtrusive. It'll just appear as if you're seeing the backdrop through the chandelier. And again, another layer of clear cylinders on top of that. Transclear dish with another cylinder on it, and we're just going to finish that off with one of these little jewels on the end, and that gives us our chandelier. Now we need to be able to attach this all together, so I'm going to use one of these long bar pieces, and that's going to go right the way through, securing our dish into place and giving us the shape of our chandelier. I think I want to replace that grey 4x4 round plate possibly with something clear or maybe a bit more interesting, but for now we'll leave it in grey. I've got to reverse the stud direction so I can actually attach this onto the build. So by sliding the 2x2 round plate over the bar, it allows me to secure this table piece in, and that's going to act as the hanger. If we have another look here at the chandelier, you can see that on top of it there's another row of lights. I don't know if it's because they're on or if they're genuinely a different colour, but they appear yellow when all of the stuff hanging below seems to be clear. So I've used these trans yellow cylinders. And there we see our chandelier in place. Just compositionally it's quite nice. It's a big arrow pointing you down to where the minifigs are, so we can shift our focus down into the main area of the training room. So throughout the Order of the Phoenix, this training room gets quite a lot of screen time. We have the DA in here on a number of occasions. And one of the more memorable ones is at around Christmas, where Cho decides to hang back after class and Harry has his first kiss. And he needs a good excuse. So here we see that turning column coming helpful for hanging our mistletoe. This is simply one of the smaller limb pieces, and then 3 white studs. I'm very surprised that they don't make the cherries in white for something like mistletoe, bearing in mind the number of Christmas sets they make. But moving on now to our next version, and this is going to be the Room of Hidden Things. So on this side you can see the cabinets. Inside one of those I've managed to place advanced potion making. It's Harry hides, and scattered around and about the place, I managed to find even more, and I've added these in now, are sherry bottles left by Professor Trelawney, who's been using this room for years to hide her bottles without anyone finding out, until of course the events of the Half-Blood Prince. So as you can see, we just stud a jumper on the top of the cabinets onto the bottom of the columns, and our interior is now one complete piece. That will help to hold our base in. Again, we can use both sides of this. So on this side you get to see obviously Ravenclaw's diadem on the bust with the dusty wig, and then there's the vanishing cabinet, which for some reason Harry's trying to get into. Usually got Malfoy there. But if we want this more specific Room of Hidden Things scene, then we can display it this way round. Of course, the vanishing cabinet and the minifig, and in fact all of the junk, is removable if we want to amend the scene. There we go. The piles of books simply made from a number of 2x2 jumpers. The chair is the same design using those action piece legs as comes in the set. And indeed, a lot of the junk in here is taken from the main set. So with our module stripped back again to the blank canvas, we're going to take a look at Fiendfyre, the scene from the Deathly Hallows, features Harry and Malfoy making an escape from the inadvisably cast spell. So I'm using transclear orange for our cabinets this time, and then we've got our Fiendfyre added into the scene again from our Room of Requirement set. Harry and Malfoy are being joined by one of these 2 long bars, which, having a pinhole in the end of it, also allows it to display the diadem, so it looks like they are riding 2 up on the broom. We've attached the Fiendfyre by means of, you can't really see it, there's one of those tilted plates inside. We just studied that onto there just to get a slightly better angle for our Fiendfyre. If you've seen my community post, you'll see the original version of this had the Fiendfyre attached to the wall, but I wanted everything to be assembled together on the plate, and it gave me a chance to update the fire to something a little more impressive with those large dragonfire pieces at the back. And again, our columns just stud with the jumper onto the top of those cabinets. And complete our scene. We get the height, quite a nice composition with the fire getting taller as it reaches the centre, drawing your eye up to Harry and Malfoy as they make their escape. So our final version is again from the Deathly Hallows, and this is going to be where the Room of Requirement is used as a refuge and camp for the various victims of Snape's regime. So we've made up a base. You can see, much like every teenager's room, there's cups everywhere. Got some newspapers and propaganda, Hogwarts trunks, and of course all the sleeping bags all over the floor. where the various people escaping from the Carrows and Snape have assembled. So we can make use of our studs on the wall. Just find a little clip from which we can dangle a couple of school bags, just so it's not all on the floor and we're actually integrating the room a little bit more into the scene. We don't need Dumbledore's army name list, which is left over from when I had this as the training room, but it does mention in the text that throughout the room of requirement are displayed the colours of Gryffindor and Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, and that the only house not represented by a banner or display was of course Slytherin. So this really is where our rotating columns come into their own, and I'll show you that a little bit later. First one, I had a couple of minifigures just to the scene briefly. So we're going to pick the scene where Ron and Hermione have returned from the Chamber of Secrets in their hunt for basilisk fangs, so that Hermione can destroy Hufflepuff's cup. So there we go, quite a simple display. I didn't want to go too heavy on this one because it's not going to be displayed very often. Sure, Fiendfyre will spend much more time on display during any Battle of Hogwarts setup I do. So talking about those columns as they rotate, one of the features of this room, when you look at the set photographs, is that there are hammocks hanging from the various columns. So I'm just trying to make some fairly simple hammocks using again those 2x4s with the bed stickers on them. All of these come from friend sets, by the way. Using some inverted tiles and inverted curved slopes and a little jumper, and then just these sort of paddle bits on the end. Now this is probably not the final form of this idea. It's what I'm working with at the moment, because you'll see once we get these in here, again we're using these Technic half pins shoved into our Technic holes on our columns. Really these are just held just by the tension and just held at that one end. So we kind of have to imagine that they're secured somehow at the other end, but handily that other side just disappears behind the column. We can just assume it goes and secures somewhere safe. Just adjust that just to get the slightly better angle. Again, that's making use of that top space in our module. That's why we've got the banners up high, and you can see our crisscrossing hammocks above our ground scene. So there we go. Those are our modules. 3 or 4 different versions. 5 if you count the reversible room of many things, and allowing us to show many scenes within the room requirement. But where am I going to put all this when it's not in the castle? Let's have a look. Here we are at the castle. It's currently in bits and bobs, and underneath I have these small shelves where I'm using for storage. See my Yule Ball, Goblet of Fire, Troll for the bathroom. This side here is currently housing some very special guests from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You know, don't read anything into this. I'm sure you can't guess what one of my upcoming projects is by seeing those. Now on this side it's just a load of junk. This is the shelf that Time forgot. I don't even know what's in there. I don't think I've even got that Hoover anymore. But I want to create a fascia across here so that I can hide the stuff inside. And if you've got any suggestions of what that facade could be, that would be very helpful. So there we go. That's our room of requirement. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave us a like. Drop us a comment if you've got any ideas for the facade for our hidden shelf. And please subscribe to Bricking It. Bye bye.